ABERGAS.
I am HERNANDEZ.
And this is RX Patrol for the breaking news.
During the last century, there were several U.S. outbreaks of toxicity associated with pharmaceutical additives. The 1937 mass and Joseph vanillamide disaster is the most notorious of these epidemics. Diethylene glycol, an excellent solvent, also
In December 1983, Eferol, a new parenteral vitamin E formulation, was introduced. It contained 25 units per ml of alpha-tocopherol at
More recently, there has been concern over potential mercury toxicity from the preservative thimerosal, a mercury derivative that has been used in parenteral vaccines for 70 years. Although there are few reports of toxicity from large oral and injectable thimerosal dosages, no evidence has yet shown toxicity to result from the routine vaccination. Potential concerns of toxicity, particularly autism, have spurred ongoing efforts to eliminate thimerosal vaccines wherever possible.
And that's all for today. Once again, I'm ABERGAS.
I'm HERNANDEZ. Thank you for watching RX Patrol.
I'm ABERGAS.
I'm HERNANDEZ.
And we are here to report about toxicity of pharmaceutical excipients.
So what are pharmaceutical excipients? Excipients are essential components of drug products in addition to the active ingredient necessary to act as vehicles, add color, improve taste, provide consistency, enhance stability and solubility. These substances impart antimicrobial properties to medicinal formulations. Different excipients are also required to impart appropriate pharmacokinetic characteristics to different dosage forms.
But they are also potential toxicants. Examples of known excipient-induced toxicities include renal failure and death from diethylene glycol, osmotic diarrhea caused by ingested mannitol, hypersensitivity reactions from lanolin, and cardiotoxicity induced by propylene glycol.
The commonly used excipients include diluents, binders, colorants, surfactants and solubilizing agents, preservatives and antibacterials, solvents, sweeteners, suspending agents, and others.
Let's start with the solvents or co-solvents. Water is the solvent most widely used as a vehicle, but there are other water-miscible co-solvents used to enhance solubility, taste, antimicrobial effectiveness, or stability. Examples are propylene glycol, ethylene glycol, ethanol, and low molecular weight polyethylene glycols. The first example for solvents is propylene glycol. It is a clear, colorless, odorless, sweet viscous liquid employed in numerous pharmaceuticals, foods, and cosmetics. It is used as a solvent and preservative with antiseptic properties similar to ethanol. World Health Organization set the daily allowable intake of propylene glycol at a maximum dose of 25 mg per kilogram. Toxicities noted on propylene glycol are cardiotoxicity, neurotoxicity, ototoxicity, and nephrotoxicity. For cardiotoxicity, IV preparation of phenytoin contains 40% propylene glycol. Cardiovascular effects reported in cases include hypotension, bradycardia, widening of QRS interval, and transient ST elevations. Neurotoxicity involves seizures, visual hallucinations, disorientation, tinnitus, vertigo after receiving 474 mg per kilogram dose. For ototoxicity, otic preparations contain up to 94% of propylene glycol in solutions. Application of high concentrations produce hearing impairment, tympanic membrane perforation, middle ear adhesion, and cholesteatoma. For nephrotoxicity, human proximal tubular cells exposed in vitro to propylene glycol concentrations of 500 to 2000 mg per deciliter exhibited significant cellular injury and membrane damage within 15 minutes of exposure. Second is ethylene glycol. It is readily available and extremely toxic substance by ingestion. Ethylene glycol poisoning represents the most common poisoning among the toxic alcohols. It is present in solvents and added to cosmetics and antifreeze solutions. Lethal dose is 100 ml in a 70 kg adult. Clinical presentation of toxicities. The first phase, called neurologic, occurs within 30 minutes to 12 hours after ingestion. The symptoms are drowsiness, ataxia, CNS depression, nausea, and vomiting. The second phase, called cardiopulmonary, occurs between 12 and 24 hours after the ingestion. The symptoms are dyspnea, hyperventilation, coma, seizure, cerebral edema, tetany, muscle paralysis, acute renal failure, tachycardia, and hypertension. The third phase, called renal, begins between 48 and 72 hours after ingestion. The symptoms are persistent renal insufficiency and cranial nerves deficiency. Laboratory diagnosis of ethylene glycol toxicity would reveal elevated anion gap, increased plasma lactate concentration, high osmolar gap, elevated serum creatinine and blood urea nitrogen concentration, rhabdomyolysis, hypocalcemia, and hyperkalemia. Recommended management of ethylene glycol poisoning includes supportive care, infusion of sodium bicarbonate to correct metabolic acidosis, to increase renal elimination of glycolate, and to inhibit precipitation of calcium oxalate crystals. Antidotes such as competitive ADH substrate, for example ethanol, or inhibitor fomepizole to block ADH metabolism of the toxic alcohol, and intermittent dialysis to remove the toxic alcohol and its toxic metabolites.
Next category of pharmaceutical additives are preservatives and antibacterials. These are added to products to maintain sterility and to prevent spoilage by bacteria or fungi in non-sterile medications, food, and drug preparations. Example of preservatives is benzalkonium chloride. It is the preservative most commonly present in nebulizer solutions. It is used for its bactericidal properties. It is also used in eye drops and contact lens solutions. The toxic dose of benzalkonium chloride is 400 mg per kilogram oral, 5 to 15 mg per kilogram parenteral, and a dilution of 1:2000 or 1:5000 may lead to caustic oral action. For the clinical presentation, ingestion of benzalkonium chloride produces corrosive lesions of the palate, esophagus, and stomach. Other symptoms include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, dyspnea, confusion, hypotension, restlessness, seizures, coma, muscle weakness, pulmonary edema, and methemoglobinemia. Treatment of benzalkonium chloride poisoning includes supportive measure, elimination enhancement, and gut decontamination through endotracheal intubation, and esophagoduodenoscopy are performed if required prior to gastric lavage under appropriate anesthesia. Another type of excipients are the colorants. Example of colorants is rhodamine B, also known as FD&C, red number 19. It is used commonly as a coloring agent in lipsticks. Other uses include as a dye for fabrics, analytical agent for metals, tracing agent in water pollution studies, color marker in herbicidal sprays. Acute exposure to aerosolized rhodamine can lead to burning of the eyes, excessive tearing, nasal burning, nasal itching, chest pain, tightness, rhinorrhea, cough, dyspnea, burning of throat, headache, and nausea. Symptoms typically resolve in 4 to 24 hours. It is also considered a possible carcinogen. Next category of excipients are surfactants and solubilizing agents. Examples are sodium lauryl sulfate, stearyl, and cetyl alcohol. Sodium lauryl sulfate is an anionic surfactant and may be a direct skin irritant at high concentrations. 1% may cause development of contact dermatitis with burning, redness, tightening of the skin, leathery texture, painful fissures, and lamellar exfoliation. 2% in a dentifrice resulted in a case of painless oral desquamation. Stearyl and cetyl alcohol are solubilizing agents used in the formulation of creams and can cause rare allergic urticarial reactions. Next type of excipients are binding, thickening, and suspending agents. Examples are starch, acacia, tragacanth, polyvinyl pyrrolidone, and carboxymethylcellulose. Starch is used in manufacturing tablets and may cause problems in patients with celiac disease or gluten enteropathy. Acacia and tragacanth may cause sensitivity reactions and angioneurotic edema. Polyvinyl pyrrolidone is a suspending agent used in skin and hair sprays to produce a firm film and in injectables such as penicillin, cortisone, procaine, and insulin to delay absorption. Polyvinyl pyrrolidone may cause lung lesions, pseudotumors at injection sites, and polyneuropathy. Last example is carboxymethylcellulose, which may cause an allergic contact dermatitis. Last category of pharmaceutical excipients are sweeteners. Sorbitol is widely used in pharmaceutical industry as sweetening agent, moistening agent, and a diluent. In large dosages, sorbitol can cause abdominal cramping, bloating, flatulence, vomiting, and diarrhea. Ingestion of large quantities of sorbitol or greater than 20 grams per dose in adults is not recommended. Management of sorbitol toxicity involves whole bowel irrigation and other intestinal evacuants.